Welcome to the ChangeMakers Podcast, produced by City Current and powered by Higginbotham Insurance and Financial Services.
This show shares personal stories and insight from those who are leading by example, fueling positive change and making a difference so we can learn and do the same.
We cover life lessons, business advice, passion, and purpose.
Now here's your host, Andrew Bartolotta.
Welcome to the ChangeMakers Podcast, where we share the journeys of individuals who are making a true difference, inspiring us all to learn, grow, and give back. I'm your host, Andrew Bartolotta. Today, we have the honor of sitting down with Courtney Johnson, an extraordinary nonprofit founder, entrepreneur, and advocate. At just 23, Courtney turned the profound pain of losing her father to cancer into a powerful purpose, creating Culinary Care, a nonprofit that has delivered over $1 million worth of restaurant-prepared meals to patients and families battling cancer. And through her leadership, passion, and heart, Culinary Care has brought hope and humanity into healthcare, expanding from Chicago to Dallas and touching thousands of lives. Today, we're diving into her incredible journey, how small gestures of kindness can transform the communities, and why purpose-driven leadership matters now more than ever. Courtney, thank you so much for joining us.
Thank you for having me.
Of course. Okay, let's go way back. Let's start at the beginning. Talk about growing up with your family. What a lot of this conversation is going to focus around food, so that should be fun for our listeners. But talk about growing up in Chicago with your family. What was the food scene like? And were there certain dishes, restaurants, or traditions that made a big impact on your life?
Yeah. So, we grew up in the north suburbs of Chicago, and so going into the city was always an experience. And I was very fortunate to grow up in a household, and particularly with my dad, but also my mom's a huge foodie as well. But a lot of Culinary Care was inspired by my father. And so, for our family, food was always something that we looked forward to. And that's just how we lived our lives. And my dad was someone who I just distinctly remember, we would be eating breakfast together and talking about what we were going to be having for lunch. And that's still something that sticks with me today, where it's, I wake up and my husband knows this, I have basically planned our entire day around food, and it gives us, what can we look forward to for lunch? What can we look forward to for dinner? Is this what we're going to look forward to, today, and kind of sharing what those options could be. So it is definitely something that has just been ingrained in just my everyday life. And we are also very fortunate to always have a meal to eat around the table together. And that was something that we had every single night, no matter how busy we were or what we were doing. We were always sort of, when you're a kid, we'll call it sort of forced to come together and have a meal. But looking back on it as an adult, I really did, just make sure that we always had that time and connection and being able to come together as a family. And so, I think food was really just the focal point of really a lot of our life, and whether that's holidays or just, celebrating the little moments and milestones around a meal and flipping through the magazines. Chicago does have an incredible food scene. And so that also made it all the more exciting and lively. And you would, scour magazines. Back in the day, we didn't really have a lot of go on Google. I don't even know if Google existed then.
Right.
So it was really, really just picking up a magazine and seeing what options were available and where we wanted to go and what people were talking about. And so that was something that, we were very fortunate to have that upbringing in childhood.
Well, I love that. I think I had a similar experience growing up in the Chicagoland area, the south suburbs, for the most part, and before I moved down south. And there's so many just like generational institutions and restaurants that are just like family legacies that you love going to, and it's part of like just being in the area that there's so many restaurants that you go to and enjoy and are part of the celebrations, like you said, holidays and such, that just like when you go back or when you are thinking about having that Chicago style hot dog or deep dish pizza. Like it just bring back so much joy.
Yeah.
And talk about what it was like in your household. Do you have siblings? And then talk about going into college and what sort of your teens to mid 20s before we have this really life-defining moment that helped that helps spur your idea for culinary care.
Yeah. I mean, I have two younger siblings, so I'm the oldest of three. And my dad was diagnosed with stage 4 lung cancer my junior year, the end of my junior year of high school, and passed away in the very beginning of my senior year of high school. And so really, I think I had maybe had my license at that point, or at least my permit, but I was definitely sort of thrown into being an adult in some way. It's like my mom is the primary caregiver, but the second one is me. And then we've got, my two younger siblings, and we're all about 2 years apart. And so we're all basically in that high school phase.
Mhm.
I think my brother was seventh, eighth grade at the time. And so unfortunately for him, it's, growing up without a dad in those super formative years. It just breaks my heart to think of what he was going through versus, what I was going through, which was just having to like move forward. So, we have his funeral planning and I'm studying for the ACT alongside that. Like things do not stop and life does not wait for you to grieve. It doesn't wait for you to fight cancer. And so we were, trying to keep up with all of our extracurriculars, do our homework, have some semblance of a normal life, especially as teens, and then figuring out how to do that while also spending as much time as possible with my dad and being at the hospital and now sort of having to sort of grow up a little bit faster. And, heading into college, that was really for me, it was just like, I just have to keep going. I know that I need to go to college. Like there really isn't, like for me, it was really just, I have to just like keep bouncing forward. I'm not really going to sort of, whether it's a good reaction to have or not, it was just kind of my reaction was just okay, just like keep moving forward. And then I think after college was when I was really able to say okay, like I don't really think I've properly like grieved, or like I want to make sure that I'm going to be carrying my dad's memory with me in like the most positive way, and also just carrying his memory with me in general, because at some point you lose the ability to call his cell phone number and hear his voicemails and do these like little things that you just would never think are important, but those things start going away. And now it was just after college, just a moment of, okay, I really do want to keep his memory alive. I also love giving back and charity, like volunteering has always been also part of our lives. I don't know if it was certainly instilled more by my mom than my dad, but volunteering, whether it was in high school, I did, mentorship with students in the city of Chicago. I was at, a nursing home, just giving like care and support, and just like seeing the fact that us high school kids were some of the only visitors these patients had in the nursing home. Like we were their friends, we were the ones showing up. Family was no longer coming. And so it was just one of those things that just really hit me as just like, this has to be so isolating. I can't imagine going through this. And then also in college, I volunteered with the Ronald McDonald House and just wherever I could volunteer. And so giving back was just sort of something that I always really enjoyed doing. I did not think I was going to be doing it as like my career.
Right.
There was
Surprise.
really, yeah, there was really no moment where I was like, oh, this is gonna be like my job until I started the organization. And then even then it was completely volunteer based for about 2.5 years of launching Culinary Care. And just as demand started increasing, it became more clear that like somebody needs to do this full time. And I think that this really can be like a true organization, and this can become my career. And my job. And so Yeah, I mean that was really a bit of the trajectory is, during college, there wasn't like a whole lot of, thoughtfulness and intention about what I had gone through. It was really just I'm in college, I'm going to, see, what I can become. And I really like food and I like giving back and I really liked healing people. Initially, my freshman year, I thought maybe, okay, I will become a doctor and I will study medicine. And I was, in those classes my freshman year and just sort of quickly learned that that just wasn't a good fit for me. It was just not aligned with like my personality and just like what I felt like it was. And it isn't just biology. You have to know chemistry and do calculus and all of these things. So all the things that I thought it was, I was like, this is way more. And I just felt like, okay, I'm going to transition. I really like writing. And so I was a creative writing minor and did communications as my major, really just to make sure I had like the most comprehensive sort of understanding of the world and just, making sure that I could get a solid base of an education and then kind of figure out what I wanted to do.
I think that's so smart to have that foundation of communication and knowing that in any role that you are going to do, being a storyteller and a leader in whatever industry that you're able to really do it well. Another sort of lesson that I've learned through asking you this question is how cancer there's a reason why it's used as an adjective as well, because it permeates through so much, not just the person experiencing it, but the caregivers and their family. And you experience that firsthand. And so then when you decide to create culinary care, you're coming from a lens of, I know what your family has walked through. I know certainly through conversations with your father and seeing him through his journey, what that was like. And another thing too that I've learned just in these few minutes that we've started this is the lesson that when you're visiting these nursing homes and you realize and you look around and see that you are the youngest people there by decades, and you have really you may have a family member there, have had a family member there in the past, but you're really volunteering there because you know that they need communication and the malnourishment that we'll talk about later, I think also comes in this adjective wise of the malnourishment of communication and relationship building and just community. And so when you look at that lens, my wife was a hospice nurse for a while when we were engaged, and I would visit her on the weekends. And she worked with Alzheimer's and dementia care, which is just another sort of facet of that those that live in nursing homes and such. And many of them had nobody to visit them, and you would see them decline much faster. I mean, clearly I'm not a medical, I don't have a medical background, but just from what I saw, not only was it malnourishment of the food that they ate, but it was also just the the communication and the community and the relationships that they weren't having. And so I think as we talk about culinary care, that's just another aspect that you all bring to it that is so important. And it helps people know that because they're here, they're worthy, they matter, and they still have a life to tell. And while they're experiencing this horrible disease that we hope someday there's multiple cures for, that their life isn't over in that moment, and we're gonna feed them delicious meals made by restaurants, and we are going to spend time with them. And so I think it's really it's sad in a way that you've had to go through adversity to come out the other side and build this organization. But I think through adversity is where we become more empathetic to the world around us. And we realize also, like, hey, I have this lived experience and I want to honor my father, or for those listening, maybe a family member or a loved one, and go, you know what? This is my purpose, my calling. So kudos to you. So, you graduate college, you're around your mid 20s, and you decide, hey, I have this idea with culinary care. Okay, talk about finding a nonprofit, which is no small feat at all, and you're in an area that, I mean, you're in a huge city. And so talk about what it took to really start the nonprofit. And for those listening that are entrepreneurial minded, how did you sort of go about building relationships with others to then make Culinary Care what it is today? And then we'll go into the programs that Culinary Care offers.
Yeah, I mean, I think there's so much to just even unpack with what you've shared. But in terms of starting Culinary Care, I think you highlighted this a little bit in what you were just sharing, but a lot of nonprofits start from a place of like you see this need, this external need in the community, and you're like, oh my gosh, this is such a big problem. I need to help. How do I do something about it? I think where Culinary Care really began was actually more of an internal need than it was an external one. I didn't know about the problems that I now know. I didn't know, malnutrition. I didn't know, lack of community. I didn't know those things were really problems in the cancer space. What I knew was that I had this internal need and drive to grieve and heal and figure out how to keep my dad's memory alive and just have more purpose in my life. I had just graduated college. I was doing these internships. I was trying to find like what my career was going to be, like who am I in this world? And I just needed to have something for myself that didn't feel like I was working for somebody else or just doing this sort of like meaningless work, and just needed this sort of outlet for myself. So it was really just starting from this place of like an internal problem. And my solution was, okay, I'm going to go and see if I can volunteer. Like this is where I have turned to for so many, years, is volunteering and giving back and finding so much purpose and meaning through that. And so as I started searching for volunteer opportunities, that was when I was really introduced to, well, if this organization doesn't exist, like I love food, I'd love to bring people meals, because my family, when my dad was in and out of treatment for the 7 months that from his diagnosis to his passing, we had meals at our doorstep or at the hospital with us, and like good meals that we could look forward to almost every single day. And those were the memories, like if there's positive memories to take away from that time, like those are it. And so that to me really resonated, and it was just having this sense of community support and all these families rallying around us, making sure that we were taken care of, and had what one of our sort of core values are at Culinary Care is it's one less thing that you have to worry about. And so we always say, like, is this one less worry for our families? Is this one less worry for our donors? Is this one less thing that they have to worry about? And we're constantly trying, like, that is the journey that we're on, is just how do we make this really one less worry for everybody involved with Culinary Care, and just really adding that fun and joy and happiness into their lives. But that was really what I was searching for at the time. And there was no volunteer opportunity that existed that matched what I wanted to do. And so then that turned into this whole spiral of conversation of just, well, how can I bring a meal to someone? What happens if someone's going through this and they don't have a community that's rallying around them? Is that a thing for people? Like maybe everybody does, and this won't really be needed. And so that was what sparked the conversation. And, we, at the time, it was mainly myself and my now husband, and we had just been talking about this. And I just remember his reaction was, if this meant so much to you, I think it will most likely mean something to somebody else. And so let's see if we can get this started. Let's see what we can do. And I was working full time. And so in terms of getting meals, I didn't have the bandwidth to prepare them. So we knew they had to come from local restaurants. And we had been working with restaurants already through one of our board members' jobs. And so he was like, I'll go to these restaurants and see if they're willing to donate meals. And it was really just one foot in front of the other, especially at that time. Now it's more, certainly has gotten much more strategic and bigger planning. But in the early years, it was very just, how do we get a meal from point A to point B? What is point A and point B? And where does all of this go? And really just kind of making sure that we were figuring it out along the way, and really building it in response to what patients' needs were. And the first meal that we ever delivered, we had received, restaurant meal donations. So we knew we had food to give away. And we went to different cancer centers and we said, here's some flyers. Could you put these out? We're here to deliver free meals to anyone that's going through treatment. And, it had a little bit of a rhyme on it that everybody still loves to this day. So my poetry minor, people say they don't use their degrees. This was one that that ended up really working for me. So it just said, take the time to nourish and heal. Let us deliver you a free meal. And
I love that.
yeah, apparently, like to this day, we actually still get a lot of feedback on it of just, oh, I was browsing through flyers and I read the rhyme and I started thinking to myself, it would be really nice to have a free meal and to nourish and heal. So I guess all the words just really deeply resonate. But the first patient ever to receive a meal from us, she, at the time we were not tech savvy. It was like you had to print out a form, you had to circle what you wanted on the menu and, email it back to us or mail it back to us. So it was kind of complex to get a meal ordered, but she received this meal from Maggiano's and I asked about her experience afterwards. And she ended up writing this 4-page letter. And it highlights just so much of what you were just talking about, which is the malnourishment, not only physically through food, but also through just like your spirit and just, sort of soul feeling malnourished. And she felt both of those ways. So for her, she had just moved to Chicago. She didn't know anybody. She didn't know like a single person in the city. She had just been diagnosed with breast cancer. She was trying to figure out how to navigate all of this and was feeling completely alone and isolated. And she pointed out something that you don't often think about, which was for her, going to the grocery store only reminded her of how lonely she is because she felt like every meal she felt like was prepared for a party of two. It was like, here's the portion side, here's, what you should make. And she felt like everything she picked up that looked good was meant for a larger family. And so it just made her feel more lonely. And then, she dives into just at the very end of her letter, 4-page letter, she just writes this incredible statement of just your goodness, grace, and kindness have restored my faith in humanity. So it's just this like,
That's
she's
made me
feeling.
cry.
Yeah, we were just like, I mean, reading this letter, we talk about it obviously 12 years later. It just was like the catalyst to saying, if this is how we can impact one person's life, this is worth continuing to figure out how to do. And the idea that we were able to just reduce that isolation for her, it wasn't about the food. It was about the sense of community. And that is truly has become more and more in the very early years. We talked so much about the meals and the food. And just, I've really started shifting that conversation because as we've grown as an organization, as we've crossed over the decade milestone, and we've heard from so many of our families, community and the lack of it is actually what we're working to solve because it is just so profound and pervasive and more research is coming out and even just a perceived sense of community can help your outcomes by as much as 25%. So this isn't just like, oh, it's nice to have a community. Like, yes, we should all have a community. I think we can all agree that having a community is really important, but just the fact that it actually impacts your outcomes and exactly what you were saying, like witnessing sort of this decline when you don't have that hope and that, person cheering you on. Is really difficult. And for some of our families, they have a community, they just don't want their community to know about their cancer. So like the idea of community is very different for everybody. And for some of it, they just really don't want to be looked at differently and they want to keep their sense of community. But as a result, they don't have a community supporting them through their cancer treatment. So it's like, I've got all my friends and my family. I just don't really want them to know about what I'm going through, at least not yet. And so we're really filling that gap for a lot of people. And then there's, the other side of it, which is someone like Lee, who's just moved to Chicago and doesn't have any friends and family, or 2 years ago, we met a woman named Rhonda, and my staff was on a meal delivery, saw her crying in the hallway, said, you know what? We have an extra meal today. It looks like you could use one. Would you like this meal? And from that moment forward, we were bringing meals to her treatment. We were calling her and checking in on her. And what she ended up telling us later was in that moment that my team saw her, she had just received some bad news. And honestly, like I'm on the verge of not going to these treatments anymore. Like I don't feel like anybody cares about me fighting this. And so why should I care? And so that day, she was debating if she should ever come back to treatment. And then we showed up and said, we'll be here for every treatment you have. We'll be here with a meal. We'll be here with something you can look forward to. And she ended up sharing in a video that we have of just, her words exactly where I've never received such nurturing in my entire life, not from family and not from friends. And so it just these moments of just nourishment being not about physical food, but about actually nourishing your like spirit and hope is really where we come into play.
Well, I didn't expect to. I thought I would maybe tear up at like the 45-minute mark. I wasn't really expecting like the 25-minute mark, but the work that you were doing is so important. I want to restate something that you said for our listeners is that the sense of community can impact survival by as much as 25%. And that's why community is so important. And in the last decade for sure, we've learned what isolation can do for community, for each other, for our neighbors. And we live in such a tech connected world that I feel like sometimes we use that as a crutch to say we are in community. I'm part of a Facebook group that may have thousands of people that may have the same ailment as me or something, or I have 5,000 friends on Facebook, so I'm part of a community. But it's part of that, like the just like the physical being with each other and community that is so important, but also just the empathy that we can bring to strangers and how we build those special moments. Um, when my wife and I adopted our twins, we were 12 hours away in Iowa, and we knew no one, and we were at the hospital, and it was sort of a survival mode of like you're about to become parents, as as a parent as well, and you feel like you've got it figured out, but you don't really. And then you're like, my job changes from helping myself to helping others. And so in that moment, we realized we hadn't eaten in at least a day. And we found out about their local Ronald McDonald House that would deliver meals to us in the hospital. And I'll tell you, that meal, I've never been more thankful for a stranger to just say, I care enough to help feed you. And I think about Lee's experience and that 4-page letter, and I think about what your father went through and how you were able to then start this nonprofit. And whether you come from a faith background or not, from my vantage point as a Christian, I just think about like how your dad was able to work through you to then provide Lee this meal. And it's just this like circle moment where you had this idea and you're honoring him. And what better way to honor him than to help feed others, not only physically, but through their soul as well, and just know that they matter. And sometimes we think that, sorry, I'm going on a little bit of a tangent here, but I think it's so important because like sometimes we think it's so difficult to be part of community, but all it is just being our true self and like coming together and saying, what can I do to help my fellow neighbor, my friend, but also a stranger? And so part of the research of Culinary Care says that malnutrition is the cause of 1 in 5 cancer deaths. And so being a patient advocate, of course, is so important. It was surprising to learn that hospitals don't necessarily provide meals during outpatient chemotherapy. So you have this gap in care, and it really inspires this urgency and focus of Culinary Care. But, it's in the name Culinary Care, but you also provide phone calls and community in other ways. Talk about the breadth of services within culinary care.
Yeah. So we had learned about the lack of meals in the cancer centers really through our patients because we were doing home deliveries when we first started. We were actually delivering meals to the Ronald McDonald House. And I loved that. And I just remember so vividly it was probably year one or year two. And this little girl comes up and we serve her a plate. And I was like, would you like more? And she was like, I'm okay. And she goes back to her seat and she finishes it and she comes up like 5 minutes later and she was like, okay, this is actually good and I will have more. And we were permitted to bring in restaurant prepared meals. And so we had worked with their organization to say, like, we're also a nonprofit, this is vetted, and like we are going to bring in these high quality meals. And it just sort of always makes me laugh because that is really at the heart of like having a good quality meal. And that was something my dad, like if there is anything that my dad is sharing with the world, it's his appreciation for like really great food and just like how that can make you feel. And for him, it was always about the experience. You could not twist his arm to get like a protein bar just because he didn't eat lunch. Like if he's eating, it will be an experience and he will enjoy it fully and look forward to it. And so I feel like that is just really ingrained in how we operate. But the hospitals, we were doing home deliveries. My husband and I ended up driving probably 3 hours outside of the city of Chicago to drop off this meal to a family that really needed it. Their child was the one receiving cancer treatments. Mom had to quit her day job, was working nights. It was just like, you cannot say no. Like, we will be there. We will make the drive. It's fine. But after that, I ended up calling and talking to her and just saying, like, I don't know if that's sustainable for us moving forward, but we would love to help if there's another way that you see it. And she was like, I am here all day with my son, and we do not get any food. And if you're overnight at the hospital, everybody sort of pictures the tray of food. And my dad certainly got that in some moments of just like having your jello. And like, I think everybody has this like vivid visual of what the hospital food looks like. And they've come a very long way on the inpatient side and are working really hard to make those meals really great. On the outpatient side, though, it is not something the hospitals can take on.
Yeah.
It's like I know it because I'm doing it 5 days a week with our team. Like it is logistically complicated. And so we came in and said, okay, we're going to be able to bring you lunch. So that way, if you're there all day, you don't have to skip lunch. You don't have to skip these meals and go hungry through the day. We are currently filling the void of lunchtime across 7 cancer centers, both in Chicago and Dallas. And so, that really is something it's solvable. Like we're solving it. We've been doing it for 12 years. You should not have to skip lunch to get your chemo treatments. And we deliver the meals to anybody that is with them. So caregivers, I would say pre-COVID, there was a lot more family members coming with. Sometimes we'd serve like parties of 6. Post-COVID, it has really become more reined in, and you can usually have like 1 or 2 other guests with you, but not like full families. But we are there for the patient themselves and any caregivers. And so from a patient perspective, usually what happens is you come in for your first treatment. Nobody told you were not going to get lunch. And so you're hungry. You ask the nurse, well, what can I do for food? And they say, oh gosh, like we don't have anything here, but make sure you sign up for Culinary Care so you can get meals moving forward. And then you'll have a welcome call with our team. Like we want you to know that we are not just sort of like robots over here. This isn't like an AI driven organization. It's not a drone dropping off your meal. Like we are genuine people over here that care about what you're going through. And we would love to talk to you. Like we want to talk to you and hear how you're doing. And then after the welcome call, we basically just have you in schedule so you can log into our online portal and order your meals that way. But whether you use our portal or not, we will be calling you and checking in. And I call like that is like almost like a mandatory part of the program because that's the care side. And so, and then we have volunteers. Our team is always making like birthday cards and things. So if we know that you have a birthday coming up on a meal delivery day, we will be there, to help celebrate that moment or just a phone call away, honestly. And it really is surprising what that means to people. And just this year, I feel like it has come up more and more. And I think it's also not very surprising given that loneliness is now a global health epidemic. Like it is not a cancer specific issue. It is just every single one of us is feeling that isolation. And more of our patients have been saying, you know, I'm getting the home chemo pill, so I won't be in outpatient care anymore. But you're the only one that's been calling me consistently. Can you keep doing that? And so our programs are really built with like, okay, if you're asking for it, we'll keep track of it. And like, yeah, if we can do it, like when fit it into our schedule, like we absolutely will keep calling you. And then, you know, our team basically just has like a rolling daily list of like, who have we not touched base with recently? Who needs a meal coming up? Who hasn't ordered a meal? How are they doing? Why haven't they ordered a meal? And oftentimes it's they were admitted to the hospital, like things are taking a turn for the worse. And then if we find out that your loved one passed away, like we have a like a card that will send you. Like we are not just trying to say, "Oh, great, like you're not in our program anymore, goodbye." If there's things that we can do and help with, like that, we really do want our families to look at us like we are the friend that just kind of never goes away. Because a lot of the times, you know, for my dad, it was 7 months, but I know very well, and we saw it very, very actively through COVID. Like everybody jumped in 2020. They're like, healthcare heroes, meals for everybody, cards, care, like all the things. They were just showered with love. And then you get to 2021 and it's like, I don't know what to do anymore. I need to move on with my life. I can't care this much like about this issue right now. And so you just kind of see it and it's you care, but you just don't know how to like show up that actively anymore. And so for us, that is our job, is to show up actively every day for our families, whether you've been with us for 1 month or 5 years. Like you are still getting calls from us, you're still getting check-ins from us, and you're still getting meals from us. Like we just sort of are, I guess, a relentless friend that's there for you.
That's amazing. I love that. And I love that you also talk about how families should be able to treat themselves. And it's these, we've talked about these restaurant made meals that are decadent and delicious and make them feel the worthiness of them, both the caregiver side and also the patient there. And so a sense of dignity and joy during such a tough journey that they're going through. Okay, so let's move a little bit into how we can activate the listeners through this journey. So, what are the best ways that they can get involved as volunteers, donors, partners? I would love for you to also talk about the corporate cook-off.
Oh yeah. So the best way for anybody to get involved, you know, right now our biggest need is financial support. It is just the way that we're going to grow. Based on our Q1 numbers for 2025, we are expecting an 88% increase in demand this year.
Wow.
So like when I say we need financial support, like that's just what's going to help us meet that gap. You can, it's not, we say it like you don't have to be the word philanthropist doesn't have to be, oh, I can only give like $1 million gifts. You can give $10 a month. We have over like 250 people that give anywhere between $10 to $200 a month. And collectively, they're raising over like $80,000 every single year for us, which is huge and helps bridge a lot of gaps between, you know, what we really need. And, you know, if a grant maybe doesn't show up this year because they've pivoted their giving guidelines, you know, our monthly giving community is really where everything starts for us. So we always invite people, like, if you believe in our cause in any way, or you just have a personal story similar to mine, and we have so many members of it's called The Line, inspired by the line team of the line in the kitchens at the restaurants that we work with.
Yeah.
Um, and you might not see them, like they're working behind the scenes, but they are the reason that your meal gets prepped on time and is, you know, and the whole team's able to execute on the hospitality that you experience at restaurants. So, you know, the restaurant doesn't operate without their line cooks, and we don't operate without our members of the line. And then from there, we have volunteer experiences. We call them just more like thank you opportunities and opportunities to get more connected to our mission. But so many people in the line are doing it for a similar reason as mine. Like they're giving back in honor of their loved ones. They're trying to, like we are their way of making sure that their loved ones' memories stay alive. And so it's really powerful to see how many people just unfortunately have such a similar story to my own. And so the line is really our monthly giving community is just the most powerful way to start with our organization. And then the other way is getting your company involved. So we have the corporate cook-off, which has become, I would say, more of like a movement than it is a one-off event at this point. We're celebrating a decade of this event running. So it started in 2015. It is really either an employee engagement or like client engagement experience. We invite you in to a private experience at a local restaurant with one of the chefs that we work with. You're like top rated chefs. They're awesome. And they share our passion for food, for hospitality, and they just want to introduce you to what that looks like. So for us, we call it like a year-round exploration of the two sides of our mission, which is learning about the culinary piece. So hopefully you can come to this challenge and learn a little bit about like what is presentation? What does a good chef-made meal truly look like? Because one of the challenges our families face often is that their loved ones are not chefs. And so as much as they're trying to, get them to eat and, provide these great meals, getting a little bit of education on that front is super important. So it's a really fun team building, hands-on experience. A lot of our corporate partners say, instead of doing like a golf tournament or like doing, going on the greens, like we're going to go into the kitchens and bring everybody together because this is an experience that you really can't just go get yourself. And it also gives back and helps fuel our mission. And then the other side of it too is volunteerism. So it's a year-long competition. And we encourage you to get your employees engaged with volunteer activities through the Culinary Showdown if you win that challenge. So all of it adds up to points. And then at our gala in Chicago on November 13th, everybody comes together and we celebrate both our impact for the year, but also who is going to take home the impact cup and get that in their office. So you get a plaque on the trophy. It looks like the Stanley Cup. It just has, the handles are a Culinary Care ribbon. It has our logo on it and it lives in your office for the year. So it's a really, really fun team building experience and just overall like a really meaningful way to get employees engaged. And unfortunately, based on research and just recent statistics that have come out, I think it was 50% of employees will be diagnosed with cancer at some point. So it's not just like like this is a meaningful cause to support. This is something that impacts most likely every single one of your employees in some way. So
Yeah, I'm really glad you brought that up because I've been in a room before where it was like stand up if you know someone that's been impacted by cancer or you personally, no one's sitting down. And that
yeah.
is such a heart-wrenching thing to see personally. But then when you bring it into the volunteer realm and why you should give back, not only because it's a great cause, but because you, your family, your employees that you spend more time with than your families in some cases are going to experience what this may impact them
Yeah.
at one time or another. So love that you've created this gamification of it as well to make it fun. And so you are physically located in Chicago and Dallas.
Yeah.
Talk about maybe what's on the horizon for Culinary Care. Any new expansions, partnerships, or projects you're excited about or would like to speak into existence?
Yeah, I know our plan right now, our sort of dream and goal is to be in three more cities, just over the next, 3 to 4 years would be amazing. And so part of, with this corporate cook-off, it really can go anywhere. And so that's been a really big home base for us. We're communicating it more in like all of the communities where we have supporters. If your company wants to get involved, this is something that can travel, it can pop up. It's definitely, and it in Chicago when this started a decade ago, it was 2015. We were a 2-year-old organization. We really have grown in exponential ways because all of these companies invested in us, believed in us, and really without knowing us at all. Like we were such a young organization and they just, said, you know what, this sounds really impactful and meaningful. We're going to jump in and support. And because of their initial support and buy-in, like we have now come this far and have helped, thousands of families get through their treatment. So I always say 12 years ago, this didn't exist for anybody. If you were coming in for your chemo and you were feeling isolated, there really were not a lot of places that you could turn to for a good meal or community support. And it's certainly not both of those things together. And so we really have sort of changed the narrative on cancer care. And again, this is a solvable problem. And this, like the hospital thing, is just one of many issues that we know exist. So for us to be in as many cancer centers as possible, to make this just a standard of cancer care where you can come in and get your meal and get treated. And then beyond that, get the extension of community support that you need. That is something that we really would love to see sort of change and be available to everyone.
Absolutely. Well said. Okay. So, what advice would you give someone looking to turn their personal adversity into a mission driven organization like you did?
Yeah, I mean, my first sort of piece of advice was just start doing the work. Don't get too far ahead of yourself. For us, it was really establishing like, is there a need for this? It wasn't, oh my gosh, I'm starting this organization and we're going to be big and huge. It was really just, I'm starting this organization. I'm going to see what the need is. And so for like 2.5 years, we really were just responding to the needs of the community. I came on full time just because those needs, we hit like an inflection point of the need was greater than what we could do just completely volunteer based. And so, my stance on it is always just get going and learn, because there's going to be a lot that you're going to learn along the way. And we're still learning. Like we're 12 years in, and there are still changes we make every single day to get better at what we do. So I just say start doing the work. If you have to be an organization, like for us, we needed to have an organizational structure because we knew that we wanted meals donated. And so we needed a 501c3 for restaurants to be able to get a write-off for those meal donations that they were providing. And that was kind of core to our business and how we were going to be operating. But if there's ways that you can just get started and start making a difference for somebody, then I always say just start doing it. And then at these inflection points, those will be the moments that you say, okay, wow, this is what we need to do. This is where we need to pivot. This is how we need to make a change, and lean into those points. Don't just, we always take those moments of like, oh, wow, like this year, it's like, oh, wow, an 88% increase in demand. Like that's a big one. So, and we're used to like a 20 to 40% increase. Like that's our sort of norm, but 88% is much bigger. And so you take these moments and you say, for us, it's really taking it and saying, well, we've got this incredible community. We're all about community. Let's see what we can do with the community we've got. And if we can all show up in a bigger way to meet this need. And so there's these moments of time where you'll just say, okay, how are we going to respond to this? And then go from there. But I just say one foot in front of the other. Don't get too far ahead yet.
Yes, that's such a great life lesson there, even for those that are in industry and maybe not even starting their own organization. But I also love the fact that you talk about these inflection points and taking time to reflect on them and say, okay, what do I need to do to move to the next level? And maybe that is forming that 501c3, but maybe it's partnering with an existing organization, or what can we do to collaborate? So for greater good and collective impact. So I love that. And I can imagine that you and your team have a lot of days where the work feels heavy. So how do you stay motivated and maintain hope with you and your team?
Yeah, I mean, we actually just started sort of reinvigorating this where we do like a mission moment on our team call where I'm the one introducing it and really just giving more context and more thoughts. Like it's easy to, not easy to, but like you read these quotes. And so for us, it's easy because we just see all of the feedback in our, meal delivery surveys, and we can log in and be like, wow, she said this or she said that. Most recently, we had feedback from one of our patients who said that she had no appetite and was like very hesitant to use our program, and then ended up ordering a meal from us and was shocked. She ate her entire meal, and she was like, the nurse was like appalled as well. Like everyone was surprised. And so for us, it's really just kicking things off with like, this is why we do this work. And this is why we respond to this need. As a mom of like a new-ish mom, I've got a 16-month-old at home. So I feel like I try to be like very rooted in like the reality of what we can do today. Like we can't work 24 hours a day. We all have families. We all have things we need to get to. How can we show up in the hours we've got in the best way for our families, and really trying to be like as specific as possible in what we're able to take on. And there's so much need. Like our families we have a laundry list of new programs that we would love to launch to help support them. And I just try to keep them rooted in like, we just need to be really, really, really good at one thing on our program side. Like, let's be really good at this one thing, and then we can start tackling other issues within this problem, to expand from there. But, also as a new mom, I remember when my son was born, one of the nurses told me, I think she said, for the first like 6 weeks, don't think beyond 3 hours. You just need to get through 3 hour chunks at a time. And that was kind of my mindset at that moment. I feel like as an entrepreneur, that's like a little bit similar to, how to time block. Like, don't get so far ahead of yourself if you're looking to start an organization. It's like, just think of one person at a time. Like for us, we're serving Lee. Like that's it. Like we're serving Lee today. And now we're serving Rhonda. And now we're serving Frank. And it was just one human at a time, because that's why you're doing it at the end of the day. I hope it is. If you're not doing it to help these families, then maybe the nonprofit sector is not the ideal. Like like you can start, a different sort of B Corp or something that isn't necessarily, driven with these families in mind, but that is at the end of it, like they are our stakeholders. And, every nonprofit is a business. It is like a fully operational business. So, but it's just, we're here for these families, and we're thinking about them first and foremost, and they are the stakeholders we report to at the end of the day. So
yes. Oh, so many aha moments just from that spot right there, that answer. And like you said, being in the moment is so important. I mean, these caregivers are going through so much. These patients are going through so much. And the people you encounter on a daily basis are going through so much. So if you want to be part of a community, then or community as a whole, you need to be present in the moment. And I mean, I'm preaching to the choir here because my wife will look at me and she'll be like, what's wrong? And I'm like, I'm thinking about Thursday. And she's like, it's Monday. Stay in the moment, especially as a father, as a parent. You look up and you're like, how do I have a 16-month-old? For us, I'm like, how do we have two 4-year-olds and a 3-year-old? Like, what happened? How did this go so fast? Now they're telling me what to do. And so you really being present, I think, is one of the lessons that I have learned in the past year to 2 years that is so important. And it transcends whatever you're going through, to be present and in the moment, because like we've said earlier, we live in such this a polarizing world that has a lot of faults, but a lot of technology and a lot of things going past us at any given moment. And I think as humans, for us to take a moment, be present, provide kindness and care is just what we're meant to do. So this is a quick lightning round before I wrap up with three of our standard questions. But so lightning round, let's go with favorite restaurant in Chicago and Dallas.
oh gosh, that's the hardest one, because we have so many incredible restaurant partners.
They don't
And
have to be a partner. It can be like
yeah,
your husband liked to go to, or like a staple growing up. So don't feel like you have to put one of the partners on a pedestal.
Yeah, I mean, I feel like I'll defer to one of my dad's favorite places that he always brought us and that I have just so many positive memories at. So in Chicago, if you are a Chicagoan, you will know Ceres Cafe. It's in the Board of Trade building, and it was just one of those. He had a reserve table, so it was like every time Barry comes for lunch, he will be sitting here. If he's with his kids will be there. They would always take us downstairs. They had a cafe, and we would be able to like raid the candy shop and get whatever we wanted because they knew my dad. And it was just always like this experience. So not surprising that he loved it. But I have so many memories there, and actually went back 2 years ago, or maybe it was 3 years ago. I went back and asked if I could sit at my dad's table. It's been almost 20 years since he passed. And so, they were like, I don't think the host knew who he was. And he was like, well, you're just one person. That's a table for four. So you can sit over here. And which is fine.
We would
Uh,
have fighting words if that happened.
but and it's fair. Like we're in the middle of lunch service. Like I used to be a server, so I get it, and was happy to just be at the restaurant. And it ended up one of the servers actually used to wait on my dad and knew me when I was a kid and came up sobbing and was like, I heard you ask for this table in honor of your dad, and that we weren't able to sit you there, but like I just want to say that like I love your dad and miss him. And so it's just one of those places that just oddly holds so many, positive memories for me as a kid. In Dallas, I think I have to defer to, I mean, we are at Muchachos every Friday. So if you're, looking for us in the Dallas area, you can most likely find us there. But it really has just become a place where when my son was born, we just needed to be able to like get out of the house with him. And he ended up, so from the time he was like 6 weeks old, we have been going on a regular basis, and he knows the music. He would always just sort of like when he was a baby, he would just kind of sleep through the dinner. And it was just such a nice like moment to relax.
Yeah.
Nowadays he's an active participant and loves Tex-Mex and so yeah, it's definitely a fun place for us. Like the whole staff basically knows us at this point, and they come up and hang out and give our son high fives. They make sure he has his tortillas and crayons and just all the things. So it's fun.
I think this through line through the entire conversation that we've had, of course, food is more than just to feed and nourish our body. It is for our soul as well, but also the community around food and restaurants, but also at the dinner table and for joyous occasions, somber occasions, like food just carries us through so much. Okay, so favorite vacation spot.
Favorite vacation spot. Oh man, I feel like we went to Jackson Hole last year, and that was incredible. That was my first time going, and it was one of those places where I'm like, I would be totally okay if we could come back every year. I don't know if that will happen, but it was really just, I just kind of instantly felt like relaxed. And I think my son was 6 months old at the time, so I was like traveling with the kid, and there was just so much. But yeah, it was very fun, just relaxing escape.
Nice. Okay, favorite quote or book?
Favorite quote or book? I will go with two of my favorite books, I suppose, and they're kind of on both sides of what I do. One is called Unreasonable Hospitality. And I feel like you were just talking about, community being woven in. Like I call it just the core of everything we do is hospitality. Like that's what people like a great restaurant like these Ceres Cafe, the Muchachos, like that is what's rooted in just so much of I think what my dad loved and what I experienced and what we experience and why we love going out to like great restaurants is a really, really good restaurant makes you feel seen and appreciated. And, if you watch The Bear, you kind of see that in action on like a very, very granular level. You have him running out to get a deep dish pizza and turn it into something meaningful because you wanted to experience that while you were in Chicago, but you're at this super high-end restaurant. And so, Unreasonable Hospitality, I love. And then Grit is the other book that I really enjoy because I feel like that is a lot of what it takes to start your own organization or really just get through a lot of life. You need some grit. So
Awesome. We'll have to check those out. I love
yeah.
that. Okay, so if you could offer, we've got three questions left. Number one, if you could offer a meal and a message to someone fighting cancer right now, what would you want them to receive?
Meal wise, I mean, that's a tough one because it's so personal.
Yeah.
So I don't have a specific exact meal, but I would want it to be what you're looking forward to, something that you're looking forward to. And everyone has personal taste. So that's why it's hard for me to say, oh, well, this one specific meal is going to be sort of life-changing because everyone if it integrates like who you are in your culture and just the comfort and maybe it's your mom's favorite dish or something like that, like whatever is personal to you, I would want you to receive that. And I mean, from a message standpoint, I would really just want them to know they are not alone. And that sounds just like so sort of cliche and so simple, but I think it's really just knowing that we're here for you, but also like we're not alone and here's our number and you can call. And I think that's important too, is like we are truly here and we're listening. And that's a big piece of the puzzle is like we are not here to offer advice. Like we are not your doctor, we are not your dietitian, we are not your social worker. We are just people who are here to listen and that's it and just be here for you. And I think people just really need that, like just an active listener. So it'd be like, you're not alone. We're listening. We're here for you. And we're just always a phone call, a text message, an email away.
I love it. Okay, so you're creating your legacy every day, but decades from now, when people think back on your life and impact, what do you hope they'll remember you for?
I mean, I hope to be remembered, and this came up on a recent call, and it was just said so perfectly. I hope to be remembered for bringing people more good days than bad when they're going through treatment. And one of our colleagues I have to give him full credit. So thank you, Jim, for reading that text to our team on our team call. I just thought that was such a profound and perfect way to encompass like everything that we're trying to achieve. Like, I just hope that you get to spend more time with your loved ones and get to have more good days than bad because that's what we got with my dad was just amidst all the bad we got to have a lot of really good days with him and most of those were spent around food so
Yeah. Yeah. And those are the ones that you remember now almost 20 years later.
yeah.
So, yeah, absolutely. Okay, so last question. Where can people go to learn more about you, about culinary care, to support you in your mission, get involved, and bring more hope and hospitality into the lives of those who need it most?
Yeah, go to our website is the best place to start. There is both a give monthly button, a donate button. You can get your company involved. Like right now, that's our homepage sort of video is getting your company involved with our corporate cook-off. So the homepage or our website, culinarycare.org, is the best place to start. But also follow me on LinkedIn. I try to, be as active as I can and having conversations and just building meaningful connections there. So. And that's just Courtney
Oh,
Johnson.
I love it. Well, I hate that this time is coming to an end. I've had so much fun with you and just getting to learn more about you and your story and tear up a few times, but also know just the work that you are doing and providing a platform to help share it because it is so beautiful and needed most. So, thank you so much for sharing your heart, your story, and your wisdom with us. And, um, you know, having a reminder, a beautiful reminder that even in our most hardest moments, there's an opportunity to turn pain into purpose and make a lasting impact. I know that your dad is looking down on you and your family and your team and the work that you all are doing in his honor, and those that you have impacted that have gone on and passed on, or have been cured from cancer as well, are just remarkable. So thank you for the work that you're doing. I know that there may be many days that are long and strenuous, and you may question everything in life on what is going on, but you're doing it. And I hope that all of our listeners know that they too have purpose and meaning and are a change maker, just like you, Courtney Johnson. Thank you so much for being a change maker, both here and around the nation.
Well, thank you so much for having me on and helping share our story.
Absolutely.